The biggest weekend we have had in Philadelphia sports in I don't know how many years. The Phillies, the Eagles, both playing their respective Cardinals this weekend. The playoffs are back in Philly, baby. Trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front.
And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. Live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. Do us a favor. Head over to the DSM Media YouTube page. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. And it's the best place to get your comments, thoughts, concerns, questions answered, everything. Head over there. That's the great thing. We are now 41 subscribers away from 700. Let us help us get there this weekend in what I am saying is the biggest weekend in Philly sports in quite some time. I am your host, Phil Stifle, at Bearded Knowledge. I got my main man, Jason Voorhees, at Mustang3651, sitting in the co-host chair this morning. Good morning, Jason. Are you excited for what is going to be a big weekend for Philly sports?
Hell yeah, dude. How can you not be excited about the Phillies back in the playoffs? It's last time they were in the playoffs, I was what? I'm 46 now. I was 30. I can't do math. Yeah. I was in my 30s.
You're in your 30s, yeah. I was 30 the last time they made the playoffs. So that goes to show how old we are. When I had Dylan on Tuesday, he's like, "Oh, I was a pre-teenager." I was like, "Yeah, shut up." That's just terrible to say. We got a jam-packed show today. We are going to talk Phillies, Cardinals. We're going to break down the series, what we expect, what we hope, how we see it playing out. Can they win the series? And then the second half of the show, we're going to talk Eagles, Cardinals. Can they get to 5-0 at 9 a.m.? So if you're watching this on replay about 45 minutes into the show, Shane Haff from the Painted Lines and now Bleeding Green Nation will be joining us to help us. He does great work with Chalk Talk. He really breaks down tape. He's going to give us a lot of insight into this matchup for the Eagles and how they're going to be able to get to 5-0 on the season. It almost turned into just a sole Philadelphia Phillies show because playoffs are here, but we got to get into Eagles as well. It is Football Friday. So Jason, we've talked about the emotional aspect all week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, about the Phillies getting to the playoffs for the first time in 11 years and how much it means to us and how great the season is. You know, all the great stuff that, Rob Thompson was able to do with the controversies and the injuries and the problems with this team, everything that swirled around. But the games are here now. So first and foremost, I do want to ask you, because I was thinking about this a little last night and a little this morning. Do you like the 3-game and 3-day way it's set up for this? They added the extra wild card, so they have the first round bye for the first team, and you get the four teams, the 3 wild cards and the lowest of the division winners. They play basically a 3-game weekend series, and the winner moves on. So it's all in St. Louis. Do you like the way baseball has added this extra element to the playoffs and the way they've done it with 3 back-to-back-to-back games like that?
I got to be honest with you. At first, I was extremely pissed off, and I was complaining about it and bitching and moaning. But the more I thought about it, it does lend credence to, and it allows the teams that were better to get an advantage. And that's how it should be. I mean, I think a lot of times when you just kind of let all these teams get in, we tend to say, well, then it makes it, easy for everybody to get in. But you have to give an advantage to the teams that actually play better and have the better record. So the more I thought about it, I think it makes sense. Do I think maybe they should have played 1 game in Philly, but really does it matter? It's a 3-game series. It's the best of 3.
You can't have them going 1-1 back and forth. That would be stupid. If you do 2-1 and then the Phillies lose the first 2, you can't. Then they don't get that game anyway. It's funny. I actually think it's a pretty unique way, like you said, exactly. if you have the better record, you get the advantage and all. And I think that's the Cardinals are obviously a division winner. They should get the advantage over the Phillies of having all the games there. I just was so against adding more wild card teams. I don't want baseball to turn into basketball or hockey where half the league makes the playoffs. I used to love that only 4 teams from each league made the playoffs in baseball. So as they keep adding teams to it, it kind of diluted the regular season a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. But I've kind of gotten used to it now over the last couple of years, and I kind of feel like I understand the business aspect of it. The more teams that are in it, the better. The more teams that are contending towards the end of the year, the better the end of the season is for baseball. So that aspect of it, there's certain changes that baseball makes that I'll never get behind, like the shift, banning it and stuff like that. But I understand why they do a lot of their changes, and I respect that they're just trying to adjust the game for the modern fan.
Yeah, well, there has to be a line drawn, though. Like, I wouldn't
I
add
absolutely
another
agree.
wild card. I think at this point, this is where it should be. Keep it at this. I mean, unless you add 4 teams down the line, and then you want to add more playoffs. That's different. But
Right,
I don't want to keep adding more playoff teams. I think there has to be an end point where you say, okay, this is it. This is the playoff teams. Now, obviously, this is the first year of this format, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm interested to see, all these matchups and how they pan out and how these teams kind of go forward with this.
Right.
Like I said, for my initial reaction was anger, but obviously I'm a baseball guy, and the more I looked at it, and the more I
if they don't add that extra wild card spot, the Phillies don't make it in this year. We're not talking postseason baseball without that final spot. The Phillies might have been, they were battling for that 5th spot towards the end of the year, but they don't make it in, and we're not breaking our 11-year drought if they don't add that final spot. Does that dilute the fact that we made the playoffs finally? The fact that it is the first time we've made it in 11 years, but it had to be the extra spot that we used to get in.
You know what? It's the same MO as the crowd that says, "Oh, well, the Eagles are 4-0, but who did they beat?" Like, who cares?
That's fair.
We made the playoffs, and you know what? They said, "Oh, we had an easy schedule down the stretch." Okay, and we took advantage of that. So I don't look at it that way. Like, I know you can sit there and kind of look at it at every single angle. I mean, listen, let's face it. We're in one of the toughest divisions in baseball. I mean, the Mets and Braves both won 101 games. How many times do you have a 101 game winner be a wild card? I mean,
how many times do you have 101 game? You don't even have 101 game winners every year in baseball, period, let alone 2 in the same division.
That's what I mean. And so you could really make the argument that the Phillies still had a very good year. Yes. I mean, they didn't win 90 games, but listen, we're in the playoffs, and I'm excited, and I'm celebrating. And listen,
Phillies hat out. I'm going to risk ruining my Phillies jersey, my Phillies sweatshirt at work today. I am pumped. It's great. So let's talk this series. We got 3 games against the Cardinals starting today. 2:07 is listed first pitch time. You've got Zach Wheeler against. It's just so crazy the way things work out. A guy we talked about at the trade deadline that we wanted the Phillies to maybe at least dabble in the conversation about, at least I did, Jose Quintana, who was probably the best trade acquisition across baseball based off of the performance that player had with their new team. Zach Wheeler versus Jose Quintana in game 1. Zach Wheeler pitched twice against the Cardinals this year, had 2 very good 7-inning shutout performances. We were 1-1 in those 2 games. I did check. Quintana did pitch against the Phillies when he was still with the Pirates 1 game. We won that game, but he pitched, I think it was 5 2/3 of shutout baseball. Since he's been traded to the Cardinals at the deadline, he's gone 2+ months and never given up more than 2 runs in a single game. Zach Wheeler, back on him. Since his injury, since he's been back, he's had 3 outings, a total of 15 innings, only given up 1 run and struck out 15 batters. This, in my opinion, has everything lined up to be a pitching duel. But my first question, my first My curiosity is, we need Zach Wheeler that can go 7 innings. Can Zach Wheeler, have you seen enough in those 3 outings? He never went higher than 77 pitches, which was the last outing he threw last weekend against Nationals. Can we get Zach Wheeler to 85, 95 pitches today, you think? Or do you think he's still on a little bit of a clock there? Because we need 7 innings Zach Wheeler to contend in this game today.
No, I don't think he'll be on a clock. I think the reason that they sat him down was for exactly this reason, to get him in the playoffs and be healthy. I mean, listen, he's going to fire away. If he's either he's healthy or he's not. If he's not healthy, then he shouldn't even be pitching. So to me, I think you can definitely expect a good performance. It'll all depend on how he does perform in the game. Like if he gives up 5 runs in 3 innings, we're in trouble. I mean, we need Zach Wheeler. Now, if he goes 6 innings and he shuts them out and we're winning 3-0, then maybe you pull him. But it's all going to be dictated by how the game goes, because as you said, the other guy that we're facing, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit concerned because he has been one of the hottest, if not the hottest pitchers in baseball down the stretch since he got there. And honest to God, like, this is the kind of pitcher that gives the Phillies fits. So I'm a little concerned at our offense, and I'm hoping that we go in there with a better plan that we had in the regular season. Like, our plate discipline needs to be better. We need to go up there and let's let this guy see what he has in the beginning. Don't just start coming out and trying to swing for the fences.
I mean, just listen to it. Just listen to it. I mean, look at these numbers. Since Quintana has joined the Cardinals, 6 innings, 1 run, 6 innings, 2 runs, 5 innings, 2 runs, 2 2/3, 2 runs. There must have been a rain delay there or something. 5 innings, 2 runs, 4 2/3, 2 runs, 5 innings, 1 run, 5 2/3, 1 run, 8 innings, no runs, 6 2/3, no runs, 5 innings, 1 run, 3 innings in his last start on Monday. They just rested him, no runs in 3 innings. I mean,
so his average, he doesn't go deep in games. He goes 6 innings, and he's going to give you a solid 6 to 7 inning start.
He's a tough left-handed pitcher. We've got Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Bryson Stott, all left-handed hitters in our lineup. You know, he's a guy that can shut this team down. It still breaks my heart because, I mean, no, look, after Quintana got traded, because he got traded, I think, a day or 2 before the deadline, my attention moved to Noah Syndergaard. We know what happened there. I mean, he had some good moments. He had some okay moments. He had some bad moments, Noah Syndergaard. We didn't really give much up for him, though. On the other hand, Jose Quintana, I looked, he went for a relief pitcher and a minor league infielder. Now, I don't know where that minor league infielder was ranked, but I've never heard of the guy. So he must not be in the top 50 of prospects in baseball. So we could have had Jose Quintana on this team. So it kind of breaks my heart a little bit to see him, because I know we talked about this at the deadline, not moving major assets for rental players. Well, they didn't move major assets, and they got a hell of a rental player there in St. Louis that, I mean, best pitcher in baseball over the last 2 months, or one of. And now you have to face him. Just the irony of that. The last time we were in the playoffs was the end of the era of the Howard Utley Rollins era. The Cardinals beat us. The lasting image of Ryan Howard going down in a clump. And now we have to face the Cardinals again with a guy we wanted at the trade line pitching game 1. Go ahead.
No. We won that game. What? It was 1, or we lost the game. It was 1-0. Or
last game.
Yeah.
It's kind of ironic.
Wasn't that the Carpenter game? Wasn't that the Carpenter Roy Halladay game where they both kind of went deep in the game?
Yeah, I think it was 1-0 or 2-1. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we lost.
They both went deep in the game.
Or Carpenter was their.
Was Adam Wainwright still on that team?
Yeah, Adam Wainwright was on this.
Was Paul still on that team in 2011? That's crazy to think that the last time we made the playoffs, it was against the Cardinals, and there are still players on the same team, from that same team. That's kind of, I mean, there's just so many like links and connections and like wow moments in this matchup. The one thing I will say about the Phillies aspect of it, though, with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola against the best 2 hitters in the Cardinals lineup. Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado combined are only hitting .220 against Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Have not gone deep against Aaron Nola or Zach Wheeler. So Zach Wheeler, this is a great lineup the Cardinals put out there, but our two aces up our sleeves have had success against their two best hitters.
Yeah, but then again, Pujols has had huge success in the playoffs.
And Pujols was
he's
not
the kind of guy.
Pujols' season turned around after we faced the Cardinals. So
yeah, well, I don't know if he was on it. Was he on it? Oh yeah, he was on early. But I think Albert Pujols is a guy. Obviously, coming down the stretch here, he obviously went over the 700 mark, and he's a revered guy, and I love him as a player and a person. He's just a great guy. Apparently, baseball around the league, he's very well endeared. And
I'm still saying I would love him to stay for another couple of years. You know, give 756 a shot. He's up to 703.
He's the guy in the lineup. If you asked me who the guy that I fear the most, yes, Goldschmidt is like MVP type numbers.
35 homers, 120 RBIs.
I fear Pujols though, because he's the kind of guy in baseball in the playoffs. It's not always the big name guys, and Pujols is a big name, but I'm saying it's not always the number one player that does the damage. It's always like you always have these secondary heroes that come to mind. Like
I'm kind of curious. I pulled up a recent box score just to see how they're on average doing their lineup. So they got Edman in the leadoff spot, Pujols batting second, Goldschmidt 3, and Arenado 4. And that's a tough 2, 3, 4 right there. You know, I mean, any pitcher, you have to. When you see Albert Pujols in the box, you've got, you know, Goldschmidt in the on deck circle, and on the top steps of the dugout, ready to get on the circle. You got Arenado, man. That's got to be scary for any. I don't care if you're Zach Wheeler. I don't care if you're Clayton Kershaw. I don't care who you are. That's got to be scary to see that 3 back to back to back.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the Atlanta Braves being one of the most underrated organizations and teams. How about the Cardinals? They've won so many World Series. They're there every single year. And look, they have an offense that you just named that's like they could compete with anybody, those names. It's just crazy that, you know, a lot of times I feel like it's because of the market. Like you said, how Atlanta, like I think it's the same thing a little bit with the Cardinals. Like I don't think St. Louis is that big of a, like,
St. Louis is a big diehard baseball town.
It's a baseball town, but
it's a small town. It's not like it's Philadelphia.
I'm saying nationally, they don't ever seem to get the respect that teams like the Yankees, you know, they don't get it. They don't.
And not only what you're saying about them making the playoffs, they've had a lot of legendary players play in St. Louis. I mean, you got Albert Pujols, who's played most of his career there and over 700 home runs. But you can go back in time. There's just been countless amount of great Hall of Fame worthy players that have played in St. Louis, which should have drawn more eyes to that city.
Ted Williams.
Very interesting. Who?
Ted Williams.
Ted Williams. I mean, that's a drastic name right there.
Well, I'm just saying.
But for all we're saying there, I mean, the Cardinals' offense is really good, but outside of those top 3, there's a lot of unknown. You're deep into fantasy baseball and prospects and everything else because of all your dynasty work and all. There aren't a lot of big names outside of those big 3 in the lineup. Is there anyone else in that lineup on average that gives you concern, or that Philly fans are going to be like, oh shit, we did not know this guy was so good?
So, you mentioned Edman.
See, I don't even know who he is really off the top of my head. I've seen the name, but I don't know who he is.
I mean, honestly, like they got a guy, Brendan Donovan. He's kind of a part-time player, but he hits for average. He's got sneaky, you know, power. Like to me, I think if you can get through that tier 3, 4, yes, it's not a lineup that's going to scare you on paper. But like I said, they have guys. I mean, Tyler O'Neill, Carlson, Dylan Carlson. Yeah, these are all guys that are just decent players. I mean, Corey Dickerson, we had him for a hot moment.
Yeah. I mean, hot minute, right? Hot cup of coffee there.
Hot minute.
I mean, I'm looking at and the reason why I say that, Jason, it's not to like talk down. It's to kind of give us hope, you know, going into this series. And I'm looking at like the team stats over the course of the whole 162 game season. The Phillies have a better team batting average than the Cardinals. The Cardinals have scored 25 more runs than us over the whole season. We've got more hits, more home runs. We're .006, no, .007 off on base percentage. Our slugging percentage is better. Our ERA is .2 lesser than them. We've got a better team whip. We've walked less batters. We've struck out more batters. So I'm just looking at it up and down all the team stats. And yes, the Cardinals are the favorite to win this series, but it's really getting through Quintana, Arenado, Goldschmidt, and Pujols. And if you can control those four names, the Phillies can control this series. So, like, I'm trying to get towards the point of keys to this series, and it's controlling those four names, getting through those four names.
I mean, that's the number one key to the series. And the number two key is to have your aces actually perform like aces. I mean, if Wheeler and Nola do their job, we should win a lot of series. I mean,
absolutely.
The only team that, like I said, that I think can compete with us at that top two is the Mets. The Mets are better. I mean, DeGrom and Scherzer, to me, are the creme de la creme.
Best 1-2 punch.
I'm just saying, I don't think any other team has a 1-2 as good as us besides the Mets. So, to me, I think if those guys perform better, we got a shot in any series. But we've witnessed time and time again when it doesn't happen the way it's supposed to go. So my hope is that those guys are on point and that some unlikely hero comes up and starts, hitting in this Phillies lineup, whether it's somebody gets on a hot streak. It doesn't have to be Bryce Harper. I'd love it to be.
I mean, it would be great. I mean, if he's been saving his last burst of the season for this playoff run, that would be great to see him get hot. We've never seen Bryce Harper in red pinstripes. Well, we won't see him in red pinstripes this weekend. They'll be the gray jerseys. I mean, it comes down to Wheeler and Nola. I mean, for all the hype that we're giving Jose Quintana, Zach Wheeler's a better pitcher.
Zach Wheeler's way better.
He's a better pitcher now. Yesterday, last year. I mean, Jose Quintana, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. Best trade acquisition in baseball this year. But Zach Wheeler's a better pitcher. Good morning, Steve. We're talking Phillies Cardinals. We'll get to Eagles Cardinals in a minute. And you can hit us up on Twitter for that other question. I'm trying to give myself I kind of feel like everything we're talking about should make the Phillies the favorite to win this series. But I'm trying not to be overbiased as a Phillies fan. I'm not trying to be overhyped. I'm hoping not for the letdown. But everything we keep talking about keeps pushing me in the direction that the Phillies should realistically win this series.
Let's be realistic. The reason that you're holding back and the reason that a lot of fans in Phillies fans are holding back is the inconsistency of the lineup.
Absolutely.
If you look at the Phillies team, for overall, the pitching was consistent all season. I mean, there was times where the bullpen kind of had its, reared its ugly head and was kind of like, the worst bullpen in baseball. That was early in the year under Girardi. But for the most part, under Rob Thompson, the pitching has been consistent. The hitting is where it becomes inconsistent. And that is the biggest dilemma that I would have in this series when it comes to, picking who I think is going to win. How is this series going to pan out? That's what's holding me back. If the Phillies performed at the way that they're supposed to perform, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The Phillies would be the favorite, even if they were the wild card and division. Cardinals were the division winner. But we have to be realistic. The Phillies weren't consistent. So that's a problem that do you see it just automatically changing? Now, you know how they always say, anything can happen come playoff time. It's 0-0. Yes, but can an offense that's been kind of, on and off just turn it on?
Well, if they turn it on, and the playoffs last a couple of weeks, you know what I mean? It's, if they turn it on today, I mean, the offense could carry this team to the next round. The offense could carry this team to the NL championship round. I mean, it could get hot for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're playing the Braves for the rights to the World Series. That's how hot the offense can get. Now, I just want to throw this out there for anybody listening. There will be. I've seen people on Twitter saying that Bryson Stott should get benched for this game or X, Y, and Z, that move Schwarber out of the leadoff spot. Do this. Look, guys, we've gotten to the playoffs. Rob Thompson is not going to all of a sudden change what he's been doing for the last 3-4 months. Your lineup is going to be exactly the same as it's been for the last 3 or 4 months. It's going to be Schwarber. It's going to be Hoskins. It's going to be Harper. It's going to be JT. You'll probably see Bohm in the 5-hole.
Your Veerling is going to play, though, instead of Marsh.
I did hear that because of the matchup with the left-handed Quintana. But that's the only reason.
No,
so,
I get that.
Game 2 will be Marsh back, which I don't want to harp on Rob Thompson and off-season questions. But he did say the day we traded for Brandon Marsh that he was going to be out there every single day, and he has not been out there every single day. Even though he had an injury for a little bit there, he has used Veerling with matchups. I would have preferred to see Marsh just out there, just like Stott, getting into that rhythm.
I think come next year you will see Marsh as your everyday
and let's be honest,
fielder.
Brandon Marsh, I mean, he's hit some home runs since he's gotten here. He's driven in some runs. Brandon Marsh is quietly been a pleasant surprise since we've got him, in my opinion, outside of the injury that he missed some time.
It's way better than Mickey Moniak or any of the other scrubs.
It's way better than nobody talks about that move. Yeah, I mean, nobody talks about the move. He came over here batting like 190 or 200. He's got his average up. He has done everything he's asked for to work on his game and his swing. And I think he's impressed me because I had very low expectations for him when he came over. And he left for a guy in Logan O'Hoppe who has already been promoted to the majors. So, our top hitting prospect for one of their prospects, the trade looked uneven to Phillies fans, but quietly he's done a pretty damn good job in center field.
Do you trust Ruben Amaro? Because Ruben Amaro said that he could be, down the line, he could be an excellent, all-star type player. Like
Absolutely.
Ruben Amaro, a GM that was great in this city, is very high on him. So he said that was even though we gave up O'Hoppe, it was, to be honest, a steal because we got the center fielder of the future. He's young and he's controlled.
He's not the only one. There's been quite a few big heads in baseball that said it was a good. I mean, Brandon Marsh was a top 50 prospect not too long ago, and he just struggled in LA when he got called up, and they didn't work on his swing the right way. There's a lot of question marks there. All right, Jason. So we've been going here for 27 minutes. We got about 5 minutes left till we got to start transitioning to Eagles talk. 3 games this weekend. Actually, hold on. Before we make our predictions, Ranger Suarez. I brought this up with Dylan and Mark the last 2 days, and it's something that piqued my interest, and I want to bring it up to you. It's a 3-game series. It's all hands on deck. Our bullpen has question marks. If Zach Wheeler can't go deep tonight, say he gets a high pitch count, or if tomorrow it's Aaron Nola has to get pulled in the 5th inning. I know Ranger Suarez is slotted to start Game 3, but Ranger Suarez coming out of the bullpen might in a 4th or 5th or 6th inning spot might be better than some of the other guys we have you need Alvarado and Dominguez for later in the game. You need to save those. Zach Eflin maybe even for later in the game. If you need a relief pitcher to go 2 innings, say today or tomorrow, do you burn Ranger Suarez now? Because say you go down you lose 2 games, there is no Game 3 for Ranger Suarez. Is there any scenario to that theory that you need to have Ranger Suarez on hand in case for today or tomorrow?
I like what you're saying, but no, because I think pitchers are creatures of habit, and you lined him up. You made that decision that Suarez is your 3. You got to hold hope that they're going to be able to, get through to Game 3 or win the first 2 and not even worry about it 3. I think your guy is Eflin. I think that's why you used Eflin in the last game. And I loved what I saw. Listen, listen. I'm not big on Zach Eflin, but I got to be honest.
Who are you talking to? You know who I am about Zach Eflin.
No, but he looked fresh in that last tune-up, and I think he's your guy. I think him and Syndergaard will be your kind of long guys. If
see, the thing is, to my point, I'm not burning Ranger Suarez tonight if you need to. Yeah. But if we lose tonight and then tomorrow's game is on the line, I would burn Ranger in Game 2. If we're down 2-1 or 3-0, say in the 5th inning, Aaron Nola doesn't have it, there is no Game 3. So
You
I
gotta
would
have
burn
faith.
him in
You
game
got to
2.
have faith in your bullpen. You have guys.
Come on now.
You can use Syndergaard. You can use Eflin. That's what they're there for now.
Nick Nelson better not see the field coming out of that bullpen in this series.
Who?
Nick Nelson.
He shouldn't even be on the roster. But I'm saying you have Syndergaard and you have Eflin.
And you have Bailey Falter as well. You can always use Bailey Falter.
You don't have to use. I get what you're putting out there, but I'm just
saying I love do or die situations in baseball because it's all hands on deck when you get to that point. And to me, all hands on deck means I brought it up with Mark.
Yeah, and then this is what I see happening if you did do that. You say you do bring in Ranger and you still lose the game, so then you lost. Say you bring him in, you win the game. Now your starter in game 3 is Kyle Gibson or
Bailey Falter.
No, because if you use Bailey Falter too.
Oh no! You use one or the other. I'm saying use Ranger Suarez over Bailey Falter in that situation.
I would use Bailey Falter and Eflin. I would use Bailey Falter today.
I don't want Kyle Gibson touching the field. I don't want Noah Syndergaard
touching
the
field.
Though,
you know that.
If they have to, yeah. Look, it's just the way. Look, I just go back and I know you're old enough to remember that playoff series with the Arizona Diamondbacks many years ago. We're in a do or die situation. Randy Johnson started the game, and then they burned Kurt Schilling by bringing him in a day or two after he had pitched to pitch an inning in relief because it's all hands on deck. Because if you get knocked out, there is no tomorrow.
But Kurt Schilling is not. Ranger Suarez isn't Kurt Schilling. If you pitch Ranger Suarez, he's not. He's done. He's not going to be able to pitch again for.
Right. No, I agree.
Kurt Schilling was like a guy that was.
I still say we lose a series not if our bats go cold, not on our aces. If we lose a series, it's because our bullpen falls apart. So that's why I'm saying Ranger Suarez pitched out of the bullpen in his career. So I'm just thinking big picture. Do you burn it to 3-game series? You know, and if it works out, you can still get him in the bullpen the next series if we make it to the next series. You can still get him in the starting rotation for game 3 of a 7-game set. I don't know. It's just bold thought that I had. That I just love you got to know that Rob Thompson and his crew are thinking of these exact same things because it is do or die at this point. You got a 3-game series. You got to win. So just things that must go through a manager's head.
Not to get off the subject, but I believe yesterday or the day before was the anniversary of Roy Halladay's no-hitter in the playoff game against the Cardinals.
It was yesterday.
And so how fitting would it be if Zach Wheeler comes out today and has I'm not saying he's going to have a no-hitter, but if he comes out.
It's only happened like twice, so yeah, exactly.
If he comes out and has like an 8-inning, shutout game and we win, that would be awesome. Like
set the tone right from the get-go of the playoffs, period. If we come out and dominate this series and go 2-0 and move on, and our bats hit, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler pitch dominant, our bullpen shuts the door. Let me tell you something. This Phillies team will scare the Mets, the Braves, the Dodgers, the 3 best teams in the NL. Because if our bats click with our top 2 pitchers in sync at the same exact time, this is a scary baseball team in any best-of-7 series if you've got those 2 things clicking at the exact same time.
And that's where I went to in the beginning because I feel that besides the Mets, we're the best team as far as top 2 guys.
Yeah. So Jason, your predictions for the series, do they win it? Do they win it in 2 games, 3 games? Do they lose it? How do you see this weekend playing out? Will we be talking Monday about more Phillies playoff baseball?
Here is a strong confidence, and that's not me because I've been quietly.
I know what you're going to say now. By that, I know what you're going to say.
Honest to God, see the Phillies winning the series, and I see Aaron Nola and Wheeler both dominating, and we win. We go on.
So we don't even need Ranger Suarez. We don't need that game 3. 2-game sweep.
I have a weird feeling that I think this is the moment. This is why we have these guys. Like, if they don't perform well, then we're in trouble. Like, we need these guys. And
absolutely.
I think that this is why they sat Zach Wheeler down, and I'm actually excited because I think they did the right thing finally. They didn't try to pitch him through it, and then he ends up being out injured, on the IL, and then we're sitting here today saying, Nola's starting game 1, and then, who's the rest? Like, we have 2 guys.
I agree with you 110%, Jason. I also have the Phillies going 2-0.
Dude, I don't know where it's coming from, but I just have a weird feeling.
I see something like either tonight or tomorrow being 3-2 Phillies win, a close game. And I don't know if it's going to be tonight or tomorrow. So I see one game being like a 5-1, pretty comfortable. Not 5-1's not a blowout, but a pretty comfortable win. And I see a 3-2 win in the two games. We win both games, one comfortably, one a little nail biter at the end. But I see it being over. I see my Sunday focus solely on the Eagles because the Phillies have already wrapped this series up in two games. Mark brought up a very interesting thing, and we'll end it with this, and you could say yes or no. I wouldn't be against the Phillies bringing Jimmy Rollins into the locker room this morning or this afternoon and being like, guys, let's go. We don't have that clubhouse leader. This means a lot to Philadelphia and the Philadelphia organization because this is the team that ended our run. Can you guys make up for that and knock this team off? It's an interesting little pep talk. Awesome. Teams bring people in for pep talks all the time from inside the organization and outside the organization. Rollins has been around this team all year. Bring Rollins in. Have him hype them up. Say, yo, they killed us. They ended our team's run. We need you guys to get the revenge for the 08 squad and 08 team.
I wouldn't put it past them, and I know Charlie Manuel's in town. I could see him actually making he was at a signing last night.
Oh, but that was in Philly. They're in St. Louis right now. So, he would have to hop on a red eye for that.
That's true. I forgot.
So we both got the Phillies sweeping this series in two games. I love it. We might be homerish. We might just get smoked and both look like complete idiots on Monday by saying that. But hey, that's what we got. We got to pause in the action real quick because I got to pay a quick bill here. Today's show is brought to you by Gents Barber Lounge. Check out one of their two great locations in Fishtown and Old City and book your appointment today. Gents owns the craft and it shows, rated the #1 barber shop on Yelp in the Philadelphia area. Multiple award-winning barbers and able to handle any style cut, adult or kid. Again, Gents Barber Lounge in Philadelphia. Make sure you check them out. All right, it's time.
Jamming to that commercial.
What's that?
I felt myself jamming to that commercial.
I love the low key beats in that commercial. Great work there. It's so we moved from one Cardinals team. I just think it's so weird that the Eagles and the Phillies are both playing the Cardinals the same exact weekend. I still just it's so minor, but that thing alone. Just I can't get it out of my head. I think it's
the universe, man.
The universe is all. It's like when you have one of those treasure hunt movies and all the planets align and the light comes through and you find the secret treasure. Everything's aligning just right for the Phillies and Eagles this weekend. Look, we're gonna be joined in about 5 minutes by my man Shane Haff. He hosts Chalk Talk on the Painted Lines. Great X's and O's guy. Really great at breaking down film, and a huge Eagles fan as well. And he also is now part of Bleeding Green Nation. We'll pump that up when he gets on. He can explain that. But we got the Cardinals. The Eagles are 4-0. We need to see, can this team get to 5-0 this weekend, Jason? And how do they do it? And it comes down to one simple thing. And we started talking, me and Mark, yesterday. If you caught our first ever 91-minute episode of Trending in the AM, it was the longest thing in the world, but it felt great. We talked and we centered around, Jason, one thing. And it's stopping Kyler Murray because there's a lot of good players. There's a lot of adequate players on offense, but it's all centered around Kyler Murray. On defense, they look good, but they don't actually do much on defense, the Cardinals. They're a lot of fluff, but not much results. Cliff Kingsbury, there's a lot surrounding him, whether he should be fired or not. I said he should have been fired last year, whatever. There's some problems between him and Kyler Murray. So the key is you stop Kyler Murray, you stop the Cardinals. Is it that simple this weekend?
Yeah, the thing is that I know a lot of people are highly critical of Kyler Murray, and I see a lot of people, saying he's overrated and this and that. But I will say one thing about Kyler Murray. Like, he is a playmaker, and it's easy to sit there and focus on it, but you see how hard it is for teams to contain Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts is a similar type player when it comes to that, where he's a playmaker. Guys that make things out of nothing. I think Jalen Hurts at this point now, I'm not going to lie, and maybe this is me being a homer. I think he's better than Kyler Murray. But I think Kyler Murray has that ability to still make one or two plays in every single game that kind of make you go, wow, like that was, how did he do that? So I think you're kind of on a good point. I think that is the focus. Stop Kyler Murray. But let's not act like they have nobody else on the roster. Like James Conner to me is a decent running back, but he's injury prone. That's been his MO. He was injured.
The question with James Conner's going to go off 2 or 3 times this year. Will this week be one of them? Probably not with our rush defense, but it could be because he hasn't gone off yet this year. You know what I mean? So he's going to get his at some point this year.
Yeah, I mean, we do get a break not having to face D-Hop because I think a lot of people have actually totally forgot about D-Hop. Like D-Hop was like the top wide receiver in the NFL for so long, and I know he's approaching 30. I believe he actually is 30. But the Cardinals traded for him, and he was doing awesome before he got hurt. He was playing out of his mind, gets hurt, then comes back, and then all of a sudden gets suspended. So it's almost like he's a forgotten piece.
Yeah.
When we get him back, they're dangerous. Like this guy is like one of the best wide receivers in the league. So we're getting a break by not having to face him.
Absolutely. Especially with a backup secondary.
I like Marquise Brown, but he's not like a superstar elite.
He's a number 2 wide receiver
to
DeAndre
Hopkins. We've stopped star wide receiver. We stopped Jefferson. We've stopped everybody so far on our defense. So I'm not really concerned to the point where I'm going to say, wow, this is going to be like, a team that really could give us fits. But I will say it is the kind of game where you look at it and you say, could it be a trap game? Like, could the Eagles take them too lightly? And, the Cardinals just kind of.
We also have the Giants, the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football next week. It is. We just had a big win against Doug Peterson. You got next week at Sunday Night Football at home against your division rival. And in between, you're flying out to Arizona. It does have trap written all over it. I want to backtrack for a second as we wait for Shane to join us here. The Kyler Murray conversation about, people bashing him. Look, even yesterday when me and Mark did the show, we were joking, would you take Murray or Hurts going forward? And we both just jumped at, we'd take Jalen Hurts. There is some homerish in that. Kyler, I don't want people to think that we're bashing Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is a very talented quarterback. I think Kyler Murray's biggest problem as a quarterback so far is Cliff Kingsbury.
Me too.
And I don't know if you've noticed. I mean, I watched a little bit of the game last week because it was the second game after the Eagles when they played Carolina. Multiple times you can hear him listening in his headset, in his helmet, to plays being called in by Cliff. And after you could see him mouthing words right at the sideline about how bad that play is. That sucked. The disconnect. We've talked about disconnect before on this show between different people and sports teams. The disconnect between Murray and Kingsbury, I think, is what actually holds the Cardinals back the most and Kyler Murray back the most.
I mean, I think you're spot on. I think that is the problem. So Kyler Murray could be better going forward. Obviously, gets D-Hop back, gets a better coach. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, like you said. I just think a lot of people just kind of, ride the wave up and down as far as when it comes to criticizing players. I mean, you're seeing it with Russell Wilson right now. I think Russell Wilson is not necessarily just all of a sudden forgot to play football. I think he's an idiot and he should have never wanted out of Seattle.
Man.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, all right. Let's jump here. We got my main man, Shane Haff, the Chalk Talk host on the Painted Lines, and now part of Bleeding Green Nation, it seems like. New breaking news this week. You got a new show coming out over on their network. Good morning, Shane. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Oh, fantastic. Dude, it's the planets are aligning. The Phillies are playing the Cardinals. The Eagles are playing the Cardinals. It's the biggest weekend in Philadelphia sports in quite some time.
It's a rough week to be a Cardinal, I guess.
I guess. A lot of Philadelphia's hunting Cardinals this weekend. Shane, so obviously you got Chalk Talk going on the Painted Lines. Tell everybody what you got going on now, joining the Bleeding Green Nation as well.
Yeah, so I'm still doing my weekly podcast, Chalk Talk, with Mark Henry Jr. We cover the whole NFL, so it's an Eagles-focused thing. We're going to spend 25 minutes talking about the Eagles, and then we're going to talk about all the rest of the games. So that typically goes live on Tuesday nights about 9:15. Sometimes it flexes a little bit, but that's about what we do. You guys know how that goes. I'm also
Absolutely.
I'm also a new addition to the Bleeding Green Nation post-game reaction show. And so I'll be there immediately after the game each week. And then I've got another project coming down the pipe with Bleeding Green Nation that's going to launch next week that I can't give a lot of details out yet, but I am going to be hosting a podcast with Victor Williams and Deontay Lee, kind of a more X's and O's focused podcast in the midweek. So we'll have more information about that as it sort of gets ironed out, but look for the first episode of that to drop next week.
Awesome stuff. So, okay, so we're talking Eagles, we're talking Cardinals, and we started about 5-10 minutes ago, talking about this big game. Can they get to 5-0? And it comes down to, and you're the X's and O's guy. I mean, you're great at that stuff. I love watching all your breakdown of film and stuff. It comes down to stopping Kyler Murray, and pretty much to me, that is the only, if there's not the top 3 or top 5 keys to the game. If you can contain and control Kyler Murray, the Eagles can win this game, in my opinion. What does the Eagles defense have to do to control Kyler Murray? Do you got to put a spy in there? I'm not a fan of the spy, so to say, in general. But what do the Eagles defense have to do to stop him?
Yeah, I mean, you think about spying Kyler Murray. What linebacker do the Eagles have that's going to be able to run with Kyler Murray? I don't think they have one. Maybe you could throw Nakobe Dean out there, but he hasn't played at all, so you don't want to probably make a big shift like that. I think one of the biggest things is when you play a mobile quarterback, and the Eagles have seen this. You saw it week 1 against the Lions. You don't want to be playing man coverage a ton against a mobile quarterback. The Lions did it, and Hurts killed them with his legs. Man coverage, you've got everybody's eyes, their backs to the quarterback. Their eyes are on a man. You can run guys off and just run the ball. And so, the Eagles last week missing Darius Slay and missing Avonte Maddox, they had one of the most man cover heavy games they've played. They ran man coverage on about 35% of their snaps last week. And a lot of that was because you saw some of the coverage busts early in the game. They were trying to run their match zone stuff, and coverage kept busting. It's a byproduct of having 2 backup corners out there playing with safeties they haven't played with. And so they went more man heavy. It looks like Darius Slay is going to play this week, so that's big news. It looks like Avonte Maddox is probably not. So you're likely going to see Josiah Scott in the slot again. And he struggled in zone coverage, which is something I think the Eagles are going to have to play. So hopefully a full week with starter reps, he'll be more comfortable in that. But I think you're going to have to see more zone coverage. I don't think you want to be in a situation where you're having to play man and try to contain rush or spy Kyler. That's not going to go well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the linebackers who's going to spy, who would spy him anyway. But you also have to worry about, look, we talked about it just before you joined. I'm not a huge Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown guy. I think he's a good number 2. And I if Slay plays, even if he didn't, Slay or Bradbury, I think can lock up Marquise Brown. But you still have, I think it's more important that those linebackers are worried about their tight end, who we know also well in Zach Ertz. We don't need Zach Ertz wanting to have he would never want to have a revenge game against the Eagles, so to say. But he would not mind sticking it to his former team. Look what I still got. He's had an okay season so far down there in Arizona, but you need Kazir White or TJ Edwards draped all over Zach Ertz. So that guy, whoever was going to spy, can't really spy because you need Zach Ertz to be held in check pretty much.
Yeah, I would even consider manning up Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on Ertz a lot. That's what. When you look back at why does the Saints defense always give the Bucs so many problems? Well, a big portion of that was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's ability to neutralize Gronkowski, whether he's in line or in the slot. He was such a versatile piece for them. Now that can create some problems on the back end if you've got him doing that. But like you said, I'm not tremendously worried about Hollywood Brown. He's good. He's fast. So in theory, he's a deep threat, but he's terrible at tracking deep balls. He's not really good at that. He's just relied on his speed. I'm not terribly concerned about Slay or Bradbury having issues there. The biggest thing I would focus on, and especially, Hollywood Brown didn't practice yesterday, so he's banged up coming into this game as well. I think it's all got to be about how do you handle Zach Ertz, and they'll do it a multitude of ways, but I would definitely consider having Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on him a decent amount in this game as well.
Jason, do you like that thought process, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on Ertz?
I love it. I think it's a great and to Shane's point, also, I think the one advantage that the Eagles have coming into this game, is they practice against Jalen Hurts every game or every day, their defense. So we have experience against this type of quarterback. I think that does give the Eagles an advantage that other teams might not have, especially because, obviously Jalen Hurts is, I mean, we've talked about it. Like, he's similar in his playmaking abilities. So I think it's perfect to have, somebody, on the tight end. And then, as I said, just kind of depending on the coverage, obviously I'm not into the X's and O's like Shane, so I don't know, but what he's saying, I'm really liking, the thoughts. I just hope that, Slay does play, because that's, to me is always a concern.
Shane, do you really think that it helps a lot a team that's going up against a mobile quarterback that also has a mobile quarterback for practices? Like, because I've talked about it all week and how it helps. But then I'm starting to question myself. Does it really matter that the Eagles go up against Jalen Hurts every day in practice? Does it really correlate there?
I think to a degree, to the degree that the Eagles run a lot of zone read, they will run a lot of RPOs. So the defense is already thinking in that mindset. They're not just learning these coverage responsibilities. They're trying to be manipulated by them every day in practice. It helps in the fact that when you have a mobile quarterback, you practice scramble drills. And so the defense has to cover that. So that's not a new thing. But I don't think it's as big a deal as some people will make it out to be, because the Eagles are not tackling Jalen Hurts in practice. And it's a huge difference touching a guy down versus tackling him down, as Jalen Hurts shows on a weekly basis, as Kyler Murray shows as well. So I think it helps the thought process and clarifying assignments. It helps with the mental reps, we'll say. Physical reps, they're not getting those in practice. So yes and no, it does help, but I think the advantage of that might be a little overstated by some.
What do you see? Because I'm thinking about this Eagles defense. I'm thinking about Kyler Murray. I'm thinking about, our front four and getting pressure on him, creating a little bit of a box. Obviously, we've gotten after the quarterback pretty damn well the last 3 weeks. I don't think we had any sacks against Detroit. So how we're number one in sacks after 3 of the 4 weeks only getting sacks, it's kind of crazy. We talked about before you got on the show, the lack of. I mean, James Conner is there. I mean, he's not what he used to be, but he will get his at some point this year. I'm seeing a game that's going to be less, important for somebody like Jordan Davis to be out there. That you're going to see more of your athletic front four versus the run stoppers worried about that. Is that something that the Eagles might do? Try to run more of the Reddicks, the Grahams, the Sweats, those guys out there, and not really overly get concerned about stopping James Conner?
Yeah, potentially. The Eagles, at the start of the year, they came in and they wanted to be a nickel 4-2-5 team, and they got gashed by the Lions. And ever since then, we've seen a lot of those 5-man fronts with Jordan Davis playing nose tackle, and it still lets you get nickel personnel on the field while having a heavy box look. I think they will do that. Jordan Davis exclusively plays in those fronts. He almost never plays in any other front. And I think they're going to want to get him on the field. They designed some things with their simulated pressures off of those looks. So I think you'll see it some. I don't think this will be necessarily a heavy usage game of that, unless the Cardinals come out and they try to run the ball a lot, which it isn't something they've been great at. Most of their offense has been off of Kyler Murray's creativity. This is a bad football team. It's a bad football team. Their offense stinks. Their offense is what Kyler Murray makes it out of structure. And so I'd think that that's going to be the primary focus, is getting after Murray, trying to stop him from freestyling, stop him from extending plays. I don't think you're necessarily worried about a big rushing game for James Conner here. Unless, if the Cardinals come out and they rush for 50 yards in the first quarter, you see an adjustment. But I don't think that's the primary focus.
You said it. This is a bad team. And I think me and Jason were talking about literally the second before you joined about the disconnect between Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury. And until one of those go, I don't think this team could be a successful big picture team. They might, once they get DeAndre Hopkins back, they might win some games. They might put up some points, once you add that DeAndre Hopkins element to the offense. But that disconnect is just a recipe for disaster right there. And the fact that Cliff Kingsbury is still the coach of the Cardinals, it literally blows my mind, because you could see it. If we could see it, I'm sure the GM could see it. I'm sure the owner could see it. I'm sure Kyler Murray, who they're heavily invested in has voiced his displeasure in the front office as well. I can't believe that that's still going on there, that duo.
Yeah, I can't believe – I don't understand how Cliff Kingsbury ever got a head coaching job in the NFL to begin
That's
with.
another whole subject right there.
This guy was fired by Texas Tech because he couldn't win college football games with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. And somehow he failed upward into being the coach of the Cardinals. And you can look at his track record. Generally, they start seasons good and fall off a cliff. They did it in college. They've done it in the NFL. They're not even starting good this year. Last week was the first time they've led a game in regulation all season. And
weren't they 10-0 last year and missed the playoffs?
They made the playoffs. I think they got beat by the Rams the first weekend.
But they were 10-0, right? And then I don't know what their final record was, but
I know they started 6-0. I know they started 6-0. I can't remember what they got to before they started losing, but yeah, they fell off a cliff there. And you have the whole offseason, the turbulent offseason with they extend Cliff, and then the whole thing with Kyler's contract, and then you have in preseason, Cliff is just like poking at Kyler, talking about how he's got him calling plays in preseason games to show him how hard it is, because sometimes he'll just look at him like, what are you doing? Like, you can do that when you got your extension, but once they pay that franchise quarterback, he's there, so you might want to back off. Like, one of these guys is leaving town, and it's not going to be Kyler. I don't think Cliff survives this season, to be honest.
They were Jason. They were 7-0 to start the season.
Okay, 7-0. I thought.
Yeah, then they were 9-2. They were 10-2 going into week 14. All right, so Shane, the other side of the ball, the Cardinals defense against this really, really, really great Eagles offense. You did some statistical work, and you had posted videos about how much the Cardinals blitz, but yet how bad they are at blitzing. And I thought that was some super fantastic information. So first off, if you guys aren't following, Shane, make sure you follow him at @half_TPL because he puts this kind of stuff out there. Great. But kind of give everybody that's watching the show a little information about how bad this Cardinals blitz team is and this defense is for the Cardinals.
Yeah, so the Cardinals, they don't have a very good secondary. And so the Eagles have been there, right, in the past. You don't have a good secondary. You've got two options. You can try to blitz to affect the quarterback early, get the ball out fast, whatever, to cover your deficiencies in the secondary, or you can try to drop more guys into coverage to help the secondary out. Neither is a good solution, but you have to pick one. The Cardinals love to blitz. They blitz a lot, and they do it because their secondary is not very good. They also do it because their pass rush also is not great. They lost Chandler Jones, right? That J.J. Watt's there. He hasn't been as effective this year, and so they blitz a lot. When they have blitzed this year, and they've chosen to do it against two quarterbacks that are really good against the blitz, Patrick Mahomes and Matthew Stafford, but when they've blitzed, they give up a 7% higher completion percentage. They only get a sack rate of like plus 1%, so it's minimal impact on the sack rate, and they've given up 7 touchdowns versus 0 interceptions when blitzing this year. Now,
it's just insane to hear those numbers. Like, I saw them, I read them. When you posted that, I had to reread it like 3 times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding what you posted.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that they've been so devoted to it. But you look at their secondary, and it makes sense. Now, their secondary did play better last week. Granted, they were playing the Panthers. It's pretty easy for a secondary to look bad or look good against the Panthers. But it's something to think about. So they blitzed on 44% of their snaps this season. The only concern really for me with the Eagles offense, that the Eagles lose this game if it's a fluky game with turnovers. We've got a backup kicker. We've had special teams woes. You turn the ball over, you've got special teams issues. That can brew into a disaster. The Jaguars certainly saw turnovers kill them last week. I think the pathway for the Eagles to lose this game is, you saw week 1, they put up a lot of points against the blitz. Their offensive structure is not set up with hot reads against blitzes. It's just not. It's set up around Jalen Hurts escaping free runners and making plays. I don't think this is the team that can stop him from doing that. But if that runs dry, I've seen nothing from the Eagles offense to show they have any other answer to the blitz. And so I do think you'll see teams start to blitz the Eagles more. I don't think the Cardinals have the roster to pull it off, but there might be a team down the road that does.
Do you have stats on how Jalen Hurts handles the blitz?
I do.
I'm not sure. Like, I don't really keep track of stats. So he looks like he's had a great season overall. So I can't think his numbers aren't good against it. Look, Jason, look at his eyes. He's going all over all his little charts. Where's
pull it up.
The chart?
I've got it. Okay, so Hurts has been blitzed on 26% of his dropbacks this year. And when he's blitzed, his completion percentage is 50% versus 73% when he's not blitzed. He's no touchdowns, 1 interception. His average depth of target is 6.7 yards versus 9. So his time to throw drops from 3 to 2.86. So he's getting the ball out a little quicker. His completion percentage is less. His passer rating is quite a bit lower. Somewhere I have what his scramble stats are against the blitz, but I'm not seeing that anywhere. So, typically when you blitz a quarterback, the ball is going to come out faster. It's going to be a shorter depth of target. Typically, you'll see that completion percentage go up because we're hitting those hot reads, those quick slants, those smoke screens. The Eagles don't have that in their offense. They just don't. They trust Hurts to go make a guy miss, or we're trying to launch the ball downfield. A lot of the reason his completion percentage might be lower is he's evading that first guy and then he's launching a 30-yard 9 route against single coverage. And, that's a jump ball, whatever. So the Eagles don't have that structure sometimes. And that it could be concerning down the road. I don't think it's concerning against the Cardinals.
Can I ask you a question, Shane? Why do the Eagles not use the screen more? And because I think they have the players to do it with. I think Miles Sanders, I think Kenny Gainwell, I'm surprised at his lack of usage. I don't know what your thoughts are on him, because I was always high on Kenny Gainwell coming out of college, and I think he's almost kind of went backwards as far as his usage. Why would they not want to try to institute screens? Because especially with Hurts' mobile ability to get out of the pocket, and if they are being blitzed, screens to me are like, screens and slants number, one advantage to kind of beating the blitz.
Yeah, they're at about 13% of dropbacks on screens right now. And when they throw screens, they tend to love to throw them to Dallas Goedert. I put out an all-22 video this week. They ran 3 screens to Goddard in the Jaguars game, and they really like getting the ball to him, running downhill. They think he's really good at that, and that's been effective. I think you could see that incorporated more against the blitz, because they definitely don't incorporate the hot reads. So, if you're not going to do that, you can throw screens against a blitz and against an aggressive defense, and sometimes that can help, which is also something the Cardinals like to do, by the way. They throw screens on like 16% of their dropbacks. So that's something that the Eagles will have to watch for as well. Kenny Gainwell is a curious case. Like, I was pretty high on Gainwell when he got drafted. I thought he would be kind of a versatile scat back for them, and I thought he showed some signs early. I've been terribly unimpressed with him this year. It feels like when he's on the field, they try to manufacture touches for him, and you saw the screen go off his hands in the Vikings game for the interception. You've seen some flat and wheel routes. In the Jaguars game, he had the one that went off his hands, and it was a high throw. He should have caught it. Could have been a better throw. There's fault both ways there. Rain probably plays a huge part, but I haven't been impressed with what I've seen from Gainwell. I would personally rather see him on the field less, the way he's played.
So, but guys, to both of you, because I know you both are high on Gainwell. Everybody was high on that draft pick there. And after last year, everybody thought he was going to have a huge role this year. But I think everybody thought that Gainwell was going to have a huge role this year because there's a lot of people doubting Miles Sanders. And let's be honest, Miles Sanders is having, at least through 4 weeks, probably one of, if not his best season so far through 4 weeks. I think, in my opinion, the lack of usage for Gainwell and Boston Scott, I know it was out last week, but he really hasn't seen the field either. I think a lot of the lack of the other guys is just how effective Miles Sanders has been so far.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Sanders has been good this year. They do need to get someone else in that rotation, because we all know Sanders has had some durability issues, and you want to have some other guys to work in to try to keep him fresh as the season goes on. I really like Trey Sermon as well. I was high on him in his draft. I thought he was a good addition to me. If I was making personnel decisions, he would be the Eagles running back 2 right now. Just that downhill runner, that complement to Sanders. And, you can use Gainwell in like those 2-minute situations where you need to throw the ball quick, those sorts of things. I don't mind that. I just feel like he's been forced on the field a little more than he should at this point.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so 5 minutes here we got with you. Again, we got Shane Haff here from the Painted Lines Chalk Talk. We're talking Eagles. We're talking Cardinals. All right, so for the Eagles, Shane, to go 5-0, how does the game script play out this week for them to get to 5-0?
You want to come out and start fast. The Eagles have been a fast starting team this year. They're putting up 23 points per game in the first half, which is almost a touchdown better than second place. So they're a phenomenal first half team. The Cardinals score 4 points a game in the first half. They're dead last in the NFL. So huge disparity there. You flip it to the second half, and the Cardinals are the second best scoring team, and the Eagles are 29th. Now, part of that is because the Eagles haven't needed to score, right? You get in the Viking. Now, the Lions game, they almost let that game get away in the second half. It's week one. We'll look at the rest of them. The Vikings game, they had the field goal blocked, and then they were trying to grind clock. That's fine. You look at the Jaguars game. It's rainy. They're grinding clock again. So I don't think it's that they haven't scored much in the second half because they can't. I think it's because they've been ahead. They haven't needed to. They've been trying to grind clock. It bodes well for the Eagles if they can come out and start fast, and then you get into that grinding the clock out in the second half. It's really going to negate Arizona's ability to move up and down the field. They've only scored in the second half. So you want to see the Eagles come out. You want to see them start fast. It's probably going to come through the air. Arizona's defense is ranked 28th according to DVOA against the pass. It's a bad passing defense. And for that matter, they've got a bad passing offense too. They're ranked 25th. It's all around what Kyler Murray can do, scrambling around. It's around what their defense can do to stuff the run and try to force you into third and long situations. I would come in with a pass-heavy approach, which is what the Eagles have done every week that wasn't the Jaguars game played in a monsoon, and just try to jump on them fast.
And do they do all that? And does it result in an Eagles victory here? Because I will say one thing, and Jason brought up a great point earlier in this show, that this has got trap game written all over it for the Eagles. I mean, they're not going to go 17-0. They're going to lose at some point this year. And you just came off a huge emotional victory against the Jags and Doug Peterson. You got the Cowboys Sunday Night Football at home next week, and you just drop this Arizona trip right smack dab in the middle of those two games. It does have the recipe. If that theory of what a trap game is, this has got it written all over it.
Yeah. Eagles fans love the trap game. Every time the Eagles are on a winning streak, we talk about every game as a trap game. I'm not concerned about this game. I mean, how they lose the game is turning the ball over, which is something that they haven't done this year. And outside of that, if they win a turnover battle, aside from obviously a Jalen Hurts injury, whatever, something like that, I just don't see how they lose this game. I think this is the weakest opponent that they've played so far. I think that the Eagles win this game pretty big.
I love it.
And you say that like, the Eagles don't turn it over, and the Cardinals don't create a lot of turnovers either. I think they've only recovered one fumble, and they think they have 2 picks or something like that. It's very minimal turnovers that they create. That's I love everything that you've brought to the table there with that, because it just maybe I could be more concerned about the Philadelphia Phillies, having to worry about the Cardinals than the Eagles this week. I'm glad that you've actually said what you've said about the Cardinals, because I thought I didn't really know a lot of. I don't like the Cardinals. I don't think they're that good of a team. Kyler Murray's really good, but that's it. It's a one-player team, and I thought maybe I was questioning my football, ability to look at a football team and thinking I was just a little homerish and biased that the Eagles were gonna, be able to clearly outmatch this team. So I'm glad to hear somebody else supporting my theories there.
Yeah, Eagles fans should feel confident going into this game. And not to mention, we didn't even mention this, but the Cardinals left tackle, left guard, and center were all held out of practice yesterday. So it's not like they've got great offensive line things right now. But you even just think about trap game. Listen to Jalen Hurts talk to the media yesterday. And he gets to the end of his session. He says, nobody even asked me about the Cardinals game. And then he starts talking about what a good team they are. Like, they're focused. When that's your leadership from the top down, you're not going to fall into a trap game. They're not looking ahead to the Cowboys. They're not going to ride an emotional high over the Jags. Like, they're going to be ready to go. And that's something that I'm never concerned about with Hurts under center, or in the shotgun, as it were. We don't go under center, but
yeah. There's actually some great breakdown on one of the NFL shows on ESPN about that RPO out of the shotgun by Dan Orlovsky, Clark, and all those guys. It was some fantastic watching. All right, Shane, I want to thank you for coming on this morning on Training the AM. Shane Haff at the Chalk Talk host on the Painted Lines, Bleeding Green Nation newest member at Haff and Haff _ TPL. Shane, thank you very much for joining us again this morning. I greatly appreciate your time.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thanks
for jumping on, Shane. All right, so that was Shane Haff there. Jason, thoughts on what he had to say, and does that change your theory on how this game plays out this week?
Absolutely. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like I love the quiet confidence. Like it's basically like I feel like I was overrating the Cardinals now. I really do. And maybe it is the Murray factor. Maybe that's why I kind of look at them as like maybe being a more dangerous type team. But in reality, he just broke it down like their roster's just not that good. And I think it's the coach. I think you nailed it with your point.
It really
I think the coach is what's holding the team back. Like, if they had a better coach, maybe those players would play better because it's not always just the talent level.
It's the coach's philosophies, too. We talk about how Nick Sirianni last year was able to change the team philosophy to match the personnel. The Cardinals, he brings up, I mean, you got to go back and watch his breakdown. He's a much more detailed breakdown than he gave us on the show on the sack rate versus what their defense does and how successful. It's insane to think. So if you're not good at blitzing and you're giving up all these big plays blitzing, well, maybe you should stop. But Cliff Kingsbury thinks he's smarter than everybody else and doesn't do that. Do you know what I'm getting at there?
He's stubborn.
He's
stubborn.
very stubborn.
Like we've had stubborn coaches in this town. Not just head coaches, assistant coaches. Right. I mean, I know I felt that way a lot about a former defensive coordinator we had just 2 years ago.
Yeah. All right, so give me your game script and your prediction. What you got this record or the score at? Do they get to 5-0? Do we sweep the Cardinals this weekend? Do we go 3-0 against Cardinals sports teams this weekend? And how does it play out and get to what you say?
I don't know if you have our list of what I had this originally.
You originally
had this originally as a loss.
Yeah, we both had it as losses originally.
Okay, well, that is changing once again because of having this show and also obviously
it's a week-to-week league on predictions, my friend.
I'm flipping the script again, Phil, and I think I like Shane's point. I think it will be a passing game. I think last week kind of went more back to the run because of the rain, more not so much because that's not what the Eagles want to do.
Right.
I think now that I've heard Shane, I was thinking a little bit closer, but I'm going to go 31-10 Eagles.
31-10. That's a blowout. I like it.
I changed. My opinion changed. And Shane,
you're a flip-flopper. That's what that's called, a flip-flopper.
No, that's called Shane does a great job of
dude, the guy does some great work with stats. I agree with you. As always, I had my score, like a bunch of scores written down, and then I finalize it as the show goes on. I agree. We sweep the Cardinals this weekend. We go 2-0 as the Phillies against the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Philadelphia Eagles beat down on the Cardinals as well. Kyle, are you like watching me in my room here? Because that's what I got written down here as well. 35-17 Eagles. I think Kyle's like, I don't know. There's got to be a camera in this room that I don't know about because I see the same thing. I don't know about 31-10. I see the Eagles going up big again. 28, 31-7, something like that. And then the Cardinals getting one or two scores late in the game in garbage time when they're just playing prevent defense. I could see it being 35-10, and then they get a last-second touchdown just because the Eagles' defense has given up at, stopping them at that point. Yeah. Kyle, like, reading my mind here. I don't know, man. That's kind of creepy. But yeah, it's a sweep of the Cardinals this weekend, Jason, right?
I think you're going to see A.J. Brown go off this game too. Another A.J. Brown 100-yard performance and maybe multiple touchdowns. I think he's been dominant.
That would be very acceptable in my opinion.
He's been dominant.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going to wrap up another successful week of Trending in the AM. Again, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on any other social media platforms, make sure you follow us, DSM Media, on that platform, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, whatever it is. And make sure you share it out. All those platforms, you can either hit the retweet button or share button. We'd greatly appreciate that to help continue to spread the word of DSM Media and the best damn morning show there is. Even if you can't watch it, you could plug us in your car. You could do the Apple Play. You could do the Google Play, right from the YouTube app, right in your car. You don't need to dial. You just listen to DSM Media and Trending in the AM every single morning. Because Jason, Mark, Dylan, everybody from DSM that joins me every single week do a kick-ass job. And thanks to our guest, Shane Haff from the Painted Lines. Always great to have that insight. I cannot wait for Monday morning so we could be talking about a 3-0 Philadelphia sports team. And if we go 0-3 this weekend, let me tell you something. Overreaction Monday is going to be one of the most bitch and moan episodes there ever is. But the only way you'll see it is if you make sure you're following us on all platforms and hit that subscribe button.
So
Jason,
what Phil's saying is Overreaction Monday has the propensity either be insanely pissed off or insanely excited.
I might be I might be dancing. I might be crying. I don't know what's going to happen on Monday. I think I will be dancing, but you never know. Philadelphia's let us down before. They could do it again. Everybody have a great weekend. Jason, you have a great weekend. And dude, we got to do it both. We got to go Birds and ring the frickin' bell.
Go Birds, ring the bell.
And Philadelphia has it.
Holding gets around in front.
Oh, he's got to head to it.